Kung Fu Cowboy, tennis shoes on my feet. I'm a Kung Fu Cowboy, hamburgers to eat. I'm a Kung Fu Cowboy.
And it looks like we're going to be half done. Down here, I got one more thing to tell you. And it says, Mr. Mom, who homeschooled his children. So, yeah, that's an important thing to know about me. And it's coming out in my music in different ways, especially in terms of a resentment. Okay, so let me explain. Okay, so I started to tell you when I moved to Utah, I was a Mr. Mom, which I was going to kind of do in Los Angeles if we hadn't left. I would stay home, run my record company, and then I got her a job working for Xerox. And so she was making all kinds of money and enough to support us, and then I made money too. In fact, I was actually making so much money, I was supporting her, and I was giving her money too, which, anyway. So anyway, the Mr. Mom thing really became more than I anticipated when we moved to Utah. Now I had no friends, I had no family, I had nothing but me and the kids, which was one kid at the time. And then I later realized, well, maybe I'd like to have a son, because I raised my daughter like a son. I mean, she could kick the snot out of anybody. She actually got attacked from behind once, and she ended up almost getting arrested because of what she did to the guy. Seriously, she beat that guy up. And but he attacked her from behind with a kidney punch. He was actually some black belt in karate, and he knew that she did kung fu. And karate is so evil. It's just such a terrible thing. I can't say anything good about karate. In general, nothing. There's nothing good about karate. Anyway. He came up from behind her and gave her a kidney punch. Man, and obviously that pissed her off and injured her, and I wasn't there. But anyway, I just got a call from the police, and she was under arrest. And it's like, well, why are you arresting my daughter? And she goes, she really beat this guy up. And I go, well, that doesn't sound right. And then we found out, of course, he attacked her first, and then she defended herself. And I guess for a girl to defend herself against a black belt in karate, they couldn't fathom that. The police couldn't fathom that. It took a couple of days to negotiate that, and the school was trying to, everybody was against my daughter because she beat the snot out of this guy. Which is why she ended up quitting Kung Fu. She said, I couldn't tell anybody I did Kung Fu because people always attacked me, all these karate people, always challenging me and trying to spar, and she said, I couldn't stand it. So she stopped telling people she did Kung Fu. And then when her mom took over and she said, well, you don't have to do Kung Fu anymore. And then she quit. And then she became obese, and then she couldn't come back. And she's never going to come back. So it's a shame. She could have been great. Well, she was great. In fact, my daughter is still the highest ranking student in any of my schools. She got farther up the belt rank ladder than anybody else ever has. Yeah, except for Buddha Kung Fu, because I created that after she left. But in my first two schools that I created when she was a student of mine, she's the highest ranking student in those two schools. So she had a lot of potential, but unfortunately her husband wasn't in favor of it, her mom wasn't in favor of it, and she developed a lifestyle and her friends weren't in favor of it. I mean, she had no support, and she gave it up. So I accept it, and that's just the unfortunate. I mean, I hope she's happy, and I hope that decision was right for her. But I'll never be happy about it. Let's put it that way. Okay, so anyway, I was a Mr. Mom, and I had to raise my kids by teaching Kung Fu. So I dragged my kids to my Kung Fu classes. So both my kids were raised in Kung Fu. My daughter got farther because she was with me for more years of Kung Fu, and my son was only with me for a couple of years, and then he was taken away. In fact, he was bribed by his grandfather for an Xbox. He goes, I love you, Daddy, but he's going to give me an Xbox. And so he moved to Georgia for an Xbox. I think he got it, but he ended up being so unphysically fit that I think he ended up getting excuses for phys ed. He totally went. Both my kids, could have been Kung Fu stars, but unfortunately, under the improper management, you might not be a star. In fact, both my kids were straight A students until they left. Then they both graduated with C- D averages. They were terrible students without me. I didn't even know it was me. I thought they were really smart. I thought they were really ambitious and talented. But now I'm just a Svengali. I'm able to mold people into the best they can possibly be. And I've seen that a lot when I was working with teenagers. And I'd turn them into these superstars, but then they'd quit, and then they'd eventually go back to maybe drinking or doing bad habits, and then their lives would fall apart again. It's like, oh man, they were just so excellent. Their grades went up, their lifestyle went up, their health went up, their personalities went up. Everybody loved them more, but once they quit Kung Fu, unfortunately, that can lead you back to a bad lifestyle. So that's what Kung Fu is. Shaolin Kung Fu, as I teach it, is a lifestyle. If you do my Kung Fu and you keep doing my Kung Fu, I've been doing it since 1980, you will be a happier person, a healthier person, and a better person. And in my school, I can guarantee it because I've got the statistics to prove it. Any other martial arts school, I can't say anything about that. And I've seen a lot of them that are actually detrimental to your health. They break your bones, they tear your ligaments, they make you hostile and aggressive, and they make you into well, like a prison, like somebody in prison, they make you into convicts. Even some, I go on and on. I mean, I'd like to say something good about a martial art, but they're war arts. I'm teaching the most deadly war art in the world, but I'm teaching it with Buddhism. So these are just playthings. These are like musical instruments. Each one of these demands a different style, a different attitude. So with these tire hook swords, which you can see half of them, there's 2 of them over there, those I use for my Tai Chi. In fact, you can actually see me on TikTok performing the entire Yang-style Tai Chi swan form with those guys. And then the double dagger, the whip chains, these 3 sectionals, that's a very dangerous weapon. This is very user-unfriendly, the 3 sectional. In fact, I thought when I was a student at Tai Mantis and I was learning Shaolin Kung Fu, I said, I'm never going to learn that weapon because I saw students right in front of me break their nose. You're swinging those things around and boom, comes hit you you break your nose. I saw lots of people get bloody noses with these things. So I did. But then when I got to the end of the program, I said, well, I got to get everything now. So I got to finish. I'm so close to the end. So I got the 3 sectional. I got the straight sword. I got the whip chain. I had to actually go to San Francisco to finish the whip chain because Cam Ewan, he kind of petered out there at the end. It was hard to get lessons from him in the end because he was, well, we can go into his story. My whole Kung Fu story's got hundreds of stories in it. But anyway, okay, so getting back on track. Mr. Mom. Okay, so Mr. Mom, I'm teaching my kids Kung Fu, and I actually created Tai Chi Youth because I realized I wanted something for my daughter. And fortunately, Tai Chi Youth is an amazing system, and I'm making the videos right now. In fact, I've had a real dilemma in trying to figure out how to do it because I'm used to teaching 2 classes a week and expecting the students to practice at least one day before they come back for the next class. This century, I cannot trust millennials to practice on their own. Never seen it. I've never seen one millennial be a good physical athlete. I mean, I'm sure there are, but they're wimpy. They're wimpy and weak and undisciplined. Well, they're raised by teenage girls in daycare centers before they even go to kindergarten. So they're learning how to basically be, you can be whatever you want. But you don't have to do anything to do it. It's just you got to want it. We got this whole generation or 2 of kids who think, oh, I can get this because I want it. They don't understand you have to earn it. See, I come from last century where you had to earn it. In fact, I used to have a commercial, earn it. And I actually worked for that guy. The guy who said that commercial was a airline company. I worked for him. I remodeled his house. Very famous British actor. He lived in Santa Monica. And anyway, get back. Okay, so my kids. I'm raising my kids. I'm a Mr. Mom. So all day long, I take care of the kids. I feed them, dress them, drag them to my Kung Fu class. And then at night, when I get everybody to bed, I can record my music. That was my life for 15 years. So, so that was being a Mr. Mom. Now, at the turn of the century, the marriage had already kind of ended a couple of times, but we kind of got back together so we could move back to LA. We get to LA, first thing she does within a month of being here, she falls in love with one of her coworkers at Xerox. And on Valentine's Day of the first year we're back, she goes off to stay with him, spend the night with him on the Queen Mary, and announces that, we're basically divorced and they're engaged to be married. So it's like, okay, and that was 2001. And I was with them another 10 years trying to raise the kids. And so she's off with him, which was great. Federico, he was a nice guy. We kind of got along. He was afraid of me. I beat him up, but I never did. And I never really had that inclination. It was like she was the problem, not him. He wasn't forcing her to leave me. So anyway, she was with him for, gosh, about 8 years or something. And so during that time, sometimes she'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time. And it was great. It was just me and the kids. I missed our mom. It was wonderful. It was just amazing. I loved my kids, and I really enjoyed being with them. I never resented that. It was just so fun. I should have. They wasted my time. I could have had a career. I could have had a life, instead of being a nanny. But anyway, I loved my kids, and I devoted myself to them basically 20 years. I gave up 20 years of my life like you would for any kid. You got to raise them until they're 18. In fact, that was one of my problems. She kept threatening me to take the kids and then I'd have to get a job and pay her support. And it's like, I didn't have kids so that I had to give up my career and then pay you money to raise my kids. That to me was like the biggest mistake I could ever make in my life. So that required me a lot of compromises so that I could basically stay there and get along and ignore the fact that I was a cuckold and she was off. Although I didn't stop having sex with her. In fact, I stopped kissing her at some point, which drove her nuts. I said, no, you're kissing another man. I'm not going to kiss you again. So, that bothered her a lot, but, that was her choice. She gave up kissing me to kiss somebody else, so I didn't want to kiss her anymore. So anyway, but I stuck around and raised the kids until my son turned 18, and that was, basically I felt like that was an accomplishment, that I actually had. My goal was to raise my kids, and even more, my goal was to raise them till they were at least 5 years old, because I wanted to be a good influence on them and have that spirituality and that kind of loyalty, devotion, ambition, the things that I could hopefully inspire in them, which I did. I didn't know they could be erased, but everything I taught them in those first years, maybe they've got some of the skills of being gregarious and communicate and work in different environments, because I dragged them around all my classes. That might have had some lasting benefit to them. But they're not like me. They're not me. And I couldn't figure that out until I wrote that book, 5 Souls of God. And then everything made sense. Well, of course they couldn't be like me, Neither of my kids has a warrior soul. I have a warrior soul. Take a look. I have a musician soul. Look at me. I've got hundreds of songs and dozens of albums. And musician soul means creative. It also means scientist. So I've got about 30 books I've written. And so I'm a very creative person. Okay, so I have a musician soul, which neither of my kids do. In the last 5-6 years, neither of my kids has played a musical instrument. I have never gone a week, maybe even a day, we'll say 2 days without playing an instrument. Maybe there was a day or two somewhere I didn't play an instrument. But no, every single day of my life, I played music. So they don't have a music soul. They don't have a warrior soul. So they couldn't be like me. They couldn't take over my school and follow my footsteps, but I didn't know that yet. It wasn't until 2018 when I discovered the 5 soul theory, but that's what I am. The third one is I'm a manager. Look at all you can't see them, but I've got notebooks there. I've got like 5-6 file cabinets. I've got business plans for all my businesses. I got all these podcasts. I've got them all broken down. I'm a very organized managerial type person. In fact, even when I've worked with the Small Business Association for several times over the last 30 years. I've tried to get them to help me, and they're just always in awe of how organized and my business plans and my marketing. And in fact, the last time I was working with the SBA, they said, you really think outside the box, because I was like, I had ideas they couldn't think of in terms of business management. And anyway. So I have those 3 souls. I have a warrior soul my kids don't have. I have a musician soul that my kids don't have. And I've got a manager soul, which my kids don't have. So that only leaves 2 other souls. And 60% of all people have these other 2 souls, maybe even more. Maybe it's 80%, but we'll say 60 right now. And it's a woman's soul and a worker soul, which is kind of like the man and a woman being married. The guy goes out and works, the woman stays home and has kids. Boom. That's kind of like the basic thing. So you got those 5 possible souls. Okay, so both my kids are woman and worker souls. They just want to have a job. That's it. That's all they've said in the last 10 years. I just want a job, any job. Do you have a career? No. Do you have an ambition? No. Do you have a dream? No. Neither of my kids. So I didn't know that. You see, that was totally. If they would have had the different souls, it would have been different. But that's why they couldn't stick to me. That's why they left. That's why it was easier for them to leave than it was for me to let them go. But because they couldn't relate to me. My family can't relate to me. My brothers can't relate to me. My mom and dad can't relate to me. They think I'm just, that's why my mom took me out of her will because she said that don't deserve to be called her son because I don't have the work ethic. I work hard. I work harder than anybody in the world. I just don't make money. But that's all my parents care. You sell your time, you make money. You sell your time, you make money. You sell your time, you make money. And that's all my parents want. And that's all my kids want. My kids have been really happy being with my parents. I'm not happy. But my kids would have been fine with them. That's all they wanted. And that's all my kids wanted. Okay, but anyway, I was a Mr. Mom. And you can see how I kind of have some resentment about the whole experience because I didn't realize what I was getting into. And when it was at its best, I didn't realize it was totally because of me. And when it came to its worst, I didn't realize that it was totally because of them. I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing they can say bad about me. They just didn't want to be a part of my world. So that's kind of my Mr. Mom experience. Very, very important thing that a lot of people can learn from. If you are an artist or a creative person, you can learn a lot from my lifetime because I have proven that if you're a creative person, forget having a family. Just forget it. Seriously. Don't do it. There's plenty of people who can reproduce like cows and bunny rabbits and dogs and cats. You don't need, if you're a creative person, you're not one of those animals. You're above that. You've got a special spirit that you need to honor. So if you are a creative person, follow me and I'm going to teach you how to be that person, to live the creative life. And if you're a person who's just a regular person, but you'd like to, think that you're creative, follow me. I'll get you closer to that. I did it to my kids. I thought my kids were creative. They were both A students. They were both artistic. They were both musical until they pulled the plug on me, and now they're not artistic. They're not musical. They're not creative. They're not athletic. But follow me and I can take you to another level, even if you don't deserve it. Even if you weren't born to be a warrior, I can take you a lot on that journey. Even if you weren't born a musician, I can make you more of a musician. And even if you're not really a manager business person, I can actually help you to understand and show you all the business plans and everything. I would be a billionaire if I just had some money. I got all these strategies and stuff, but it's kind of like launching a war. You can't conquer a country unless you got financial backing and 1,000 people working with you. And I have no backing and I have nobody working with me. I'm a one-man operation. So my strategies are all just kind of sitting there gathering dust. But I have all kinds of business strategies that would just require. In fact, my smallest one was to open a yoga school, which was really only about, what was that? I figured I could do it for $180,000, less than $200,000. We'll say $200,000 because the price has gone up in 10 years, we'll say. So for $200,000, I could launch a yoga school, and that would make enough money to support the school because I would only be teaching my Kung Fu yoga. And then in that same school, I could teach my Kung Fu and my Tai Chi. But I figured the all out with the SBA, but I still need $200,000, and I can't find that $200,000. So until I make $200,000, same with my movies. I got great movies, but until I get enough money to make a movie, I can't find anybody with the money to make it. So anyway, I got great ideas, great plans, and I can share them with you because there's no reason. Yeah, I got great stuff. All right, that was my Mr. Mom experience in a nutshell. But it had wonderful years. There was wonderful years of just constant love, 24 hours a day, which most people will never experience in their lifetime like I did. Because I was a full-time Mr. Mom, not a part-time, full-time. Never ever had a babysitter in the 20 years I raised my kids. Never had a babysitter. And actually, that's not true. When we were in Utah, we did have a couple of babysitters because they were my students, and they actually took care of my kids a couple of times so we could go out. But that was it in the 90s. Okay, but after that, no reason to go out with my wife because she was out already with somebody else. Didn't need a babysitter for that. Unless I wanted to go out, but she said I could never bring somebody home or have a romantic thing that the kids could see, or since she was paying the rent on the house, I couldn't have a girlfriend ever visit me or anything. So my romantic life was basically just Zippo for 30 years. And we could talk about the couple I did have and why I'm glad to now not have a woman in my life at all. If I could have a business partner, I don't care if it's a man or a woman. Sex is irrelevant to me now. So I would like to have a partner in my life, man or woman, that shares my ambitions and the desires to make all my dreams a success and market all my stuff. I would welcome that person in my life, male or female. And now that sex isn't an option, my last best friend for 5 years was a guy, and they called him my sidekick. We went everywhere together, and the only time I've ever come close to maybe having a depression was after he died. I'd say for 4 to 6 months, I was sad. But that was like losing a wife or brother or sister. Well, yeah, I miss him more than I miss my brother and sister. But anyway, don't want to say bad. But yes, it was a wonderful relationship we had, and very close. And so that's what I'd like to have. I'd like to have a relationship with somebody who could enhance my life. 20 minutes, I'm out of here.
All right. Hey, I just wrote this song just a little while ago. Let's go before the battery of my lights runs out. All right. Kung Fu Cowboy here. Sometime, probably about a week after Valentine's Day, 2023. This song is called Find Love Again. Will I ever love again? Will I ever really win when I've given all I had and it turned out so bad? Who can I trust? How can I win even if I find love again? How many times have I tried? Will I ever be satisfied? What I've had, I've paid the cost, but much more I have lost. Who can I trust? How can I win even if I find love again? Who can I trust? How can I win even if I find love again? It's easier to wait. I can choose to hesitate. The choices I will make avoid promises you'll break. Who can I trust? How can I win even if I find love again?